83% of traffic stops end with people incriminating themselves within the first 60 seconds. They say one wrong sentence, and what should have been a warning turns into a DUI investigation, a vehicle search, or worse. I've spent the last decade in courtrooms watching prosecutors use people's own words against them. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what they don't want you to know. Here's the thing. Traffic stops are one of the most dangerous legal encounters you'll ever have. Not because cops are out to get you, but because most people have no idea how to protect themselves. They answer questions they shouldn't answer, consent to searches they should refuse, and admit to things that turn a simple ticket into a criminal case. So let's talk about how to protect yourself. Trick number one, understand that you're being recorded from the moment the officer's lights go on. Many people think the interaction starts when the officer walks up to your window. Wrong. Modern patrol cars have systems that automatically activate dash cams and body cameras the instant the emergency lights are turned on. This means your behavior before the officer approaches matters enormously. If you're fumbling around in your glove compartment, reaching under seats, or making furtive movements, that's all being captured. It can be used later to justify a search or to claim the officer feared for their safety. So here's what you do instead. As soon as you see those lights, find a safe place to pull over, turn off your engine, roll down your window, place both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and don't move them. If it's dark, turn on your interior dome light. This immediately signals to the officer that you're not a threat, and it sets a calm tone for the entire interaction. I've seen cases dismissed because the dash cam showed a cooperative, non-threatening driver, which contradicted the officer's report claiming suspicious behavior. Trick number two, you don't have to answer the question, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" This is a trap, and it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. If you say yes and explain what you did wrong, you've just confessed to the violation on camera. If you say no, the officer might interpret that as dishonesty or evasiveness. The best answer is simple and polite. "I'm not sure, officer." That's it. You're not being rude, you're not admitting guilt, and you're not giving them ammunition. Some people think they should talk their way out of a ticket by being friendly and chatty. In my experience, that backfires more often than it helps. Every additional word you say is an opportunity to incriminate yourself. Remember, body cameras and dash cams are not there to protect you. They're there to protect the officer and to gather evidence for prosecution. Trick number three, you have the right to remain silent, but you need to invoke it properly. A lot of people think they can just refuse to answer questions without explanation. Technically, you can, but it often escalates the situation unnecessarily. The better approach is to be polite but firm. If the officer starts asking you questions beyond requesting your license, registration, and insurance, you can say, "Officer, I'm uncomfortable answering questions without an attorney present. I'd like to exercise my right to remain silent." Now, this might annoy the officer, but here's the thing. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Cops are trained in interrogation techniques. They're taught to build rapport, to ask seemingly innocent questions, and to look for inconsistencies in your story. One of the most common questions they'll ask is, "Have you been drinking tonight?" Even if you haven't had a drop, some people nervously respond with, "I only had one beer," or "I had a drink with dinner hours ago." Congratulations. You just gave them probable cause to investigate you for DUI. The correct answer to "Have you been drinking?" is either silence or "I'm not answering questions." Trick number four, never consent to a search. This is huge. If an officer asks, "Do you mind if I search your vehicle?" the correct answer is always, "I do not consent to searches." Say it clearly and say it on camera. Now, the officer might search anyway if they believe they have probable cause. But by refusing consent, you preserve your Fourth Amendment rights. If they search without your consent and without probable cause, any evidence they find can potentially be suppressed in court. I've won cases simply because my client refused consent and the officer couldn't articulate a valid legal reason for the search. On the other hand, if you consent, you waive those rights, and everything they find can be used against you, even if the search was completely unjustified. Officers will often try to pressure you by saying things like, "If you have nothing to hide, Why won't you let me search? Or refusing a search makes you look guilty. Don't fall for it. Innocent people have the right to refuse searches. It's in the Constitution. Trick number 5. Be aware of the plain view doctrine. Even if you don't consent to a search, anything the officer can see in plain view from outside your vehicle can be used as probable cause to search further. This includes drugs, drug paraphernalia, open containers of alcohol, weapons, or anything illegal. This is why it's crucial to keep your car clean and to keep anything that could be considered suspicious out of sight. I've had clients who had their car searched because the officer claimed to see a green leafy substance in the center console that turned out to be oregano from a spilled sandwich. By that point, the damage was done, and the car was torn apart. The lesson here is that you can't control what an officer claims to see, but you can minimize the risk by keeping your vehicle tidy. Trick number 6. Document everything. If you have a smartphone and it's safe to do so, start recording the interaction. You have a constitutional right to record police officers in public, and yes, that includes during a traffic stop. However, you need to be smart about it. Don't shove the phone in the officer's face or be confrontational. Simply place it on your dashboard facing the officer or prop it up where it can capture audio and video. Tell the officer calmly, "I'm recording this interaction for my records." Some officers will claim it's illegal or demand you stop. It's not illegal in any state to record police performing their public duties, though some states require two-party consent for audio recordings. If you're concerned, you can record video without audio. But here's the key. Even if you don't record, take detailed mental notes immediately after the stop. Write down the officer's name and badge number, the time and location, what was said, what questions were asked, and how the officer behaved. This information is invaluable if you decide to fight the ticket or if the stop leads to an arrest. Trick number 7. Don't take the field sobriety test. If an officer suspects you of DUI, they'll likely ask you to perform field sobriety tests, like walking a straight line, standing on one leg, or following a pin with your eyes. Here's what they don't tell you. These tests are completely voluntary. You can refuse them, and in many cases, you should. Field sobriety tests are subjective, and they're designed for you to fail. They're not scientifically reliable, and many sober people fail them due to nervousness, physical conditions, or the inherent difficulty of the tests themselves. The officer has already decided they suspect you're impaired. The tests are just a way to gather evidence to confirm that suspicion. By refusing, you're not giving them that evidence. Now, refusing a chemical test like a breathalyzer or blood test is different. In most states, because of implied consent laws, refusing a chemical test can result in an automatic license suspension. But field sobriety tests are not covered by implied consent. You can refuse them without legal penalty. When the officer asks you to step out and perform tests, you can politely say, "I'm not comfortable performing those tests. I'd like to speak with an attorney." Trick number 8. Know the difference between detention and arrest. During a traffic stop, you are being detained, not arrested. This distinction matters because the officer's authority during a detention is limited. They can ask for your license, registration, and insurance. They can run your information for warrants. They can issue you a citation, but they cannot detain you indefinitely. Once the purpose of the stop is complete, meaning they've written the ticket or given you a warning, you're free to go. Many people don't realize this, and they sit there answering questions for 20 or 30 minutes, while the officer fishes for additional charges. If the officer seems to be dragging things out, you can politely ask, "Am I free to go?" If they say yes, leave. If they say no, ask, "Am I being detained? And if so, for what reason?" This forces the officer to articulate a legal basis for continuing the detention. If they can't, and they continue to hold you, that could be an illegal detention, which can help your case later. Trick number 9. Never admit to anything, even small things. This goes beyond the "do you know why I pulled you over?" question. Throughout the stop, officers will ask seemingly harmless questions designed to get you to incriminate yourself. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? What have you been doing today? These might seem like casual small talk, but they're investigative questions. If you're coming from a bar district late at night, that's evidence for a DUI investigation. If you're in a high crime area, that might be used to justify further investigation. You are not required to answer these questions. A polite response is, "I'd rather not discuss my day. Am I free to go?" Remember, politeness is key. You can assert your rights without being confrontational. The more combative you are, the more likely the officer is to find a reason to escalate things, even if it's just giving you every ticket they can possibly write instead of letting you off with a warning. Trick number 10, fight the ticket. This is the one that cops really don't want you to know because most people just pay the ticket and move on. But here's the reality. A huge percentage of traffic tickets can be successfully challenged, either reduced or dismissed entirely. When you pay a ticket, you're pleading guilty, and that conviction goes on your record, raises your insurance rates, and in some cases can add points to your license that might lead to a suspension. When you fight a ticket, several things can happen. The officer might not show up to court, which often results in automatic dismissal. The prosecutor might offer you a plea deal to a lesser charge, or you might actually win at trial because the officer's testimony is inconsistent or the evidence is weak. I've had cases where the officer's dash cam contradicted their written report and the ticket was dismissed. I've had cases where the radar gun wasn't calibrated properly. I've had cases where the stop itself was illegal and everything that followed got thrown out. Even if you ultimately lose, you've lost nothing but a little time because the penalty is the same as if you just paid it in the first place. But if you win, you save money, points, and insurance increases. The system counts on you not fighting back. When you do, you'd be surprised how often things go your way. Now, let me be clear about something. Nothing I've told you today is about getting away with crimes or evading justice. If you broke the law, you should be held accountable. But the Constitution gives you rights during police encounters, and those rights exist whether you're guilty or innocent. Too many people give up those rights out of fear, ignorance, or a misguided belief that cooperation will make things better. In my experience, silence and asserting your rights won't make things worse, and they'll often make things much better when your case gets to court. One final piece of advice: get a lawyer. Whether it's a speeding ticket, a DUI, or something more serious, having an attorney who understands the system is invaluable. Most criminal defense attorneys offer free consultations, and for traffic matters, the cost is often less than what you'd pay in increased insurance premiums over the next few years. We know the games that get played, we know how to challenge evidence, and we know how to negotiate with prosecutors. Don't go into court alone and hope for the best. The bottom line is this: traffic stops are high-stakes encounters. What you say and do in those few minutes can have consequences that follow you for years. Know your rights, exercise them politely and firmly, and don't give the police more than they're legally entitled to. Stay safe out there. And remember, the best way to avoid a traffic stop is to follow the law in the first place. But when those lights flash behind you, you now know exactly what to do.